Why practice long tones anyway? Are we trying to take a giant breath and play as long as possible? Are we just trying to play a high note and sustain it so that it's got equal energy throughout? Or maybe we're just trying to strengthen our embouchure. But the long tones, they've got to have some kind of purpose at the end of it. What is the point of practicing long tones? The drill of practicing long tones is merely a means to an end. You can practice long tones for as much as you want, but unless you're going to put them into practice, they're kind of this pointless drill that you get told to do and they've got no application. You have to do it with the vision in mind. Like, why are we practicing these drills? What is the outcome of all this effort that we're putting into? And the answer is phrasing and shape. So reasons for long tone. Number 1, gonna take a big breath and play for a while. Okay, so I could go for a while. There's no point in that one. I'm not going to be practicing circular breathing, for example. Now, as a student, you're probably struggling to get higher and higher, and that's because of mouth strength. It's because you're experimenting with reed mouthpiece resistance, air balance. So let's go higher. Let's go to an A, for example. Higher again. Okay, so we're going higher and higher and higher. We're practicing our long tones. We're making our embouchure really work for it. And hurrah, long tone practice. Let's cut to the chase. The whole point of the long tone is to make an effective sounding phrase. So I've got a piece here. It's a Rose Etudes, number 5. I'm just going to play the phrase and maybe just try and observe what's going on here. I've played a really long phrase and I have not breathed. Now the Rose Etude itself has more breaths than that, so there is some phrasing in there, but I wanted to demonstrate the point of the long tone. I was able to sustain that note throughout a couple of phrases to create this very smooth sounding phrasing. Let's take the B at the start of the piece, for example. Let's just hold that B. Let's practice the long tone B. The B by itself is uninteresting. What we have to do next is have the skill to be able to play it quietly and then play it loudly. So here's a quiet B. Again, long tones, but now let's play it with some guts. Now the challenge is to get everything in between. And we can keep on going. To play an effective phrase requires an appreciation of the differing levels of complexity. We have a long tone. Great, so you can play your note, you can hold your breath, you can sustain it for a long period of time, it's nice and even, fantastic. You're step 1 along the way to something that's much more complicated. Step 2, of course, is now to play it quietly and loudly, and you got to get everything in between. So here's the first note of the Rose Etude piece. We've got a B. Let's play it quietly. Quietest tool. Let's play a loud version. Now we have to get everything in between. That's step 2 along your way. And step 3, of course, is the hardest thing of all, is we have to leap between notes. So we can take, say, across the break, let's say we take our low B. Okay, it's challenging, right? So that's not perfect in itself, but you can see that this jumps is suddenly getting in the way of us playing this smooth long tone. So we have our long tone B, maybe down to a low octave B. How do we transition to this high note to create this long tone effect? Now that is a challenge because that's all about airflow. It's almost a topic in itself. But what I want everyone to realize is that that is one of the massive aspects that will separate, say, an intermediate advanced player from an advanced player, is to be able to get those transitions such that it's not affecting this kind of illusion of a long tone, this steady long phrase. If we play some phrasing where a note kind of pops out or it disappears, suddenly our phrasing becomes less smooth anymore. So let's take that crescendo, for example. Let's just do some double octave jumps. It's pretty tricky to get that sounding smooth, but you could hear in all of that I had some sense of crescendoing through a phrase and coming back down, then bringing it back and coming back down. So it's a contrived example, but if we go back to this Rose Etude, you can see it in action. So there's some jumps in there. What will separate myself, say, and other advanced players from someone who's still getting to that point is trying to get that transition smoothness, because that again is the long tone effect, but being applied to phrasing. Step 4 is probably the hardest thing to really get the handle on, and yes, there is a step 4. The best way to try and describe what step 4 is all about is to understand articulation and the idea that articulation is affecting the temperament of an individual note. If we take an accent, we're affecting the beginning of the note, kind of the end, because it's like a miniature diminuendo. You hit and you fall away. Now we take a staccato, we're affecting the end because we've detached it. Now we have a tenuto, which is kind of the middle, we're kneading it. Nice and long. And then of course there's the marcato, which is more of your jazz realm. Okay, your staccato crossed with an accent almost. How does this affect phrasing? Well, what we really need to do is enter and exit a phrase appropriately to the phrase that we're trying to create. If we take a traditional classical piece, it will typically sneak in. Maybe it's a sneaking in a piano, we crescendo, and then you want to sneak out at the end. Now, the dynamic might be piano all the way, but that's kind of boring. You want to crescendo with it, you want to do something with the sound, but then you want to come back and end where you started. So here's the Rose Etude again. I'm going to start piano, I'm going to do something with the sound, and then I'm going to end the phrase. So see how I've snuck out the note. Now there is something in the middle there. We have, in my version, someone's penciled in a tick, and it's somehow being photocopied into this material. Now that creates a completely different effect there, have you noticed? So suddenly we've gone to this kind of like panicked urgency of playing the next phrase or the next half a phrase. So you can see suddenly the effect has changed. What does that mean? Well, we're creating some musicality here. So we could create a long phrase that tapers up, comes down. Let's say in the middle we do what they want and say, hey, breathe. We don't have enough space. We've got a demi-semiquaver. What's going on? How has that affected our phrase? It's created a sense of urgency. We're a performer, there is an audience, they're feeding off that. They're seeing as, oh, there's panicked breath. There's this sense of excitement, maybe not so much danger, but oh, there's something going on here. It's less calm when there's that panicked breath. I'm going to give another example of phrasing. This is most of the way through the etude number 5. What has happened there? We've created a sense of urgency with the way we've ended the phrase. So rather than our nice tapered version where it's all kind of calm, it just finishes, and we take our breath, we've got this sense of urgency. I have snapped a breath and then suddenly taken the dynamic down to a mezzo forte. The phrasing's prescribed, there's a little comma in the music, so they definitely want a breath there, but I've tried to make it dramatic by the way I have finished this phrase. So I've done something which you don't normally want to do, and that is hurled the note out and kind of choked it. Okay, so this has created this sense of energy, this sense of urgency, or I wouldn't say panic, but we've done something that's got people a little bit more on the edges of their seats. Now these are the advanced concepts that make a piece of music sound just that little bit more interesting. So sure, I could do this. Or even taper it. But, I kind of like the idea of giving it something more. By giving it that extra little whoosh at the end. Now, the funny thing is, it works really, really well here. But a lot of the time, the student player might do this by accident. So we'll go to the beginning, for example, we'll end that phrase. See what I've done there? I've kind of almost hiccuped the note. So that is the danger. This is what makes step 4 so difficult to achieve. It's all about beginning the phrasing and ending the phrasing. What can we do to that last note to make the phrase sound complete? What can it do to change the emotion of that phrase? As a reminder as to how we're even achieving these dynamics, remember it's all about here. We've got to push with the stomach muscle. It's like the perpetual cough. We are pushing through the phrase and then we release that pressure and the note releases. So we take our B, for example. An excellent, well-shaped phrase. Let's take another example that's somewhere in the beginning of the piece. This one is going to have some rises and falls. There are lots of little mini kind of phrases within a larger phrase. But again, it's a traditional classical piece at this point. We're going to smoothly enter the phrase. We're going to smoothly exit parts of these phrases, especially the end. Those dynamics there I've just made up. I've created extra shape because remember the composer doesn't want to micromanage the dynamics. They have a style, they've got there's this mutual understanding between composer and performer as what type of style the composer's after. So sure, there are some larger shapes, you pretty much want to adhere to those, but quite often you don't want to be playing absolutely level. You don't want to see a piano and just play a level brick-like piano. We have to do something with the music. We have to shape it. But the trick here really is you just want to enter and exit at that piano volume.